So while you lie there, we're going to start with a practice from Somatics, which I will explain at a later point. And I'm introducing you to, I guess, the most basic and common first exercise from Somatics. When you feel ready, bend your knees. And organize your feet approximately hips distance apart and your hands wherever you would like them to be. And as you next exhale, could you let your lower back press a little into the floor? As if you're holding a sheet of paper under your back that you don't want someone to slide out. And then as you breathe in, could you tilt your tailbone towards your feet so that you feel your lower back spine is arching, like if your spine was a road, you've come to a bridge in the road in the lower back, or as if you wanted to loosen the hold on that sheet of paper so that someone could slide it out. And then as you exhale, let the lower back flatten onto the floor again. If you find that all you can manage here is the movement and that the breath coordination is confusing you, just do the movement. But if you can, inhale, tilt your pelvis away from your feet. Depending on your body composition, your lower back may separate from the floor or it might stay on the floor. But the spine is certainly hollowing away from the floor as you inhale. And the spine is certainly flattening towards the floor as you exhale. This is all lumbar or lower back spine, though you might start to notice there's a little nod in the head. As you go, could you notice whether the movement is smooth or stuttery? And try and make it as smooth as possible. If you're going past the connection of your brain to those particular muscles that are doing this job, if the brain is not quite accustomed to or connected to the full range of motion of these muscles, you might get stuttery and juddery towards the end of the movement. If that happens, make the movement a little smaller and work at the edges of what you can do smoothly. Another point to notice is to tune into what muscles are actually making this happen. So as your lower back flattens, your rectus abdominis, six pack, is gliding short. And the muscles of your lower back, your quadratus lumborum, are gliding long. As you arch the spine, bringing the tail towards the feet, your rectus abdominis are gliding long and your quadratus lumborum, the muscles of your lower back, are gliding short. Gliding short, smoothly, always one muscle or set of muscles while another glides long, and vice versa. So I'm taking you through a few layers of somatics here quite quickly, whereas if I was working with a client, we'd work through different points of focus in a more gradual, built-up kind of way. But what I'd like you to tune into now is your sacrum. And in case you don't know your sacrum, I'm showing you on the video now. It's a triangular bone at the base of the spine that ends in the coccyx or tailbone and comes up in a widening triangle. The flat part of the triangle is just at the bottom of your lower back spine and the top of your pelvis. And these two sides are the sacroiliac joint, the sacrum connecting to the iliac crests, which are this part of your pelvis. If you have a symmetrical body, if you think of my hand as a sacrum, you will be rolling down the center of it to your tailbone and back to the center at the top. But could you notice whether you feel that the rolling is more to one or other side of your sacrum? And how you might feel that is, am I landing on the center of my coccyx or tailbone, or am I slightly drifting to the right or left of it? Or you might feel it more specifically. It might be more obvious that your tendency is to roll more to the right side or the left side of that bone at the center of the back of your pelvis. If you don't have a sense of it being one side or the other, that's okay. You're just going to pick a side in a moment. What I'd like you to do now is go more towards the side that you're tending towards. And that might be a surprise to you. When it comes to movement practices, we're always like, oh, we'll go to the other side or fix it in some way. But actually, what if we decide, okay, my body naturally is tending towards the right side, so I'm going to let it go there. And do that for maybe 6 repetitions, and more asymmetrical rock over the sacrum. And this is central to Somatics, and it's one of the 2 main reasons it's in this training, which is that when the body is compensating for something and an asymmetry occurs, perhaps because of that, this is not something to batter into submission and pull apart. This is a wisdom in your nervous system that has recognized a vulnerability and has created a compensatory pattern in order to protect the vulnerability. And in fact, we can live with compensation really well, but there are some compensations that may be unnecessary or excessive and don't serve us. So we might want to try and unpick them. By allowing yourself to go into your compensation now, you are telling your nervous system that you are not going to try and make it turn off its safety features. You're saying, I get that you think this is safe and I'm going to let you do this. So it's not frightened of you making a rash decision. Could you now go back to closer to center and notice how that feels? And then see if you can go to the other side. And that might feel really neurologically difficult, and that's totally fine. See if you can manage. And as you go to that other side, give yourself and your body permission to do that for not as many times as you did the other side. So that you are saying to the brain, look, this is possible, but I'm not going to force you. Maybe therefore do about 3 more to that side. And then when you've done that, come back to your version of center. And it may not have changed, it might have changed, but there is no pressure for it to have changed. And do maybe 3 more before you rest. And when you do rest, rest in any position you like and prioritize noticing what feels pleasant. alongside simply noticing what is felt without any analysis. So the central principle of Somatics is based around a phenomenon called sensory motor amnesia, a theory that when we are in a constant pattern of whatever reflex we live our life in Somatics, he identified three different reflexes. The red light reflex, when we are gathered in towards our center, we are flexed, very much a sympathetic response when we are curled in and tense, shoulders forward, shoulders hunched, abdominal muscles tense. Or the green light reflex, which is the sort of more go, go, go stress response where the back muscles are activated and we're quite open in the front. It's like a startle pattern. And then the trauma reflex, which is not psychological trauma, but if we've had a physical trauma, there's a tension somewhere that takes us off center. So we might have tensions on one side or that kind of thing. And that sensory motor amnesia is when the brain forgets, the motor and sensory cortices of the brain forget that certain muscles have other choices than constant tension. And what somatics is trying to do is to reawaken the brain's connection to those habitually held muscles by bringing them into their reflex and gently away from them. So we say, look, brain, this muscle is able to do this, but it's okay. You can go back to that if you're feeling a bit like that's more important. And look, it can do this and it can do that. So you'll see in the sequences, there's a sequence on somatics, which essentially starts from this point of learning from arch and flatten, as this exercise is called, with that information going forward. So it's here because it is very much nervous system gentle, and it is about reconnecting brain to body. We're going to do a little wakey uppy thing before we move on. So if you can lie on your back again. This isn't directly from somatics, from somatics, but it sits really quite well in a somatics practice and also segues us into our fascia practice that we'll be doing later too, because it's a very fascia stimulating practice. It also stimulates the neurological receptors in and around the spine and the back. So it's a great practice for potentially the gate control theory to stimulate neuroreceptors that are faster than our pain receptors. So it's called pulsing. It happens with our knees bent. And we are essentially rocking the body up and down the mat. So I think of it like a bear scratching themselves on a tree. While I'm doing this, I'm thinking to myself, did I teach them this during the gate control theory practice? And I can't remember because I teach this so often because I think it's so wonderful. So if you're getting a second go, no harm. It's really hard to get at first. We start doing sort of jerky movements that feel very awkward, or we do it as a sort of arch and flatten, pulsing the pelvis up and down. But it's really, if you think about, if you imagine you have a string at the top of your head, and someone is pulling it towards the wall and release, pull, release, pull, release, pull, release, pull, release. And you're sort of bouncing almost like you are not doing it yourself, that it becomes a self-sustaining pulsing up and down. It should be a movement that you feel would give you a big knot in the back of your hair if you had long hair and you carried on for ages. So there's a sort of rubbing of your head against the floor. And this pulsing is a really nice practice for the nervous system if you don't hate it. It is rocking the spinal cord within the spinal column when the head is rocking the way that it is. It is stimulating the skin, which is a really big deal for our proprioception, and we know how important proprioception is to our brain. It is stimulating the vibratory receptors. It's stimulating touch receptors as well as skin stretch receptors. There's loads going on, and it is probably neurologically difficult for you. And doing it to a rhythm, if you put on a piece of music and do it to the rhythm of the piece of music, is going to stimulate your temporal lobe as well. So there's a lot that can happen, and you might find the reason I'm talking is because I want us to continue. I don't want you to get bored. Try and underuse your legs. And you might find that the longer you go, the more delicious sensory feedback you get when we stop. So let's try and go for another 20 seconds if you can. You may not have it today. If you really have it, it can be really nice to rock it slightly to your side. You might need to take one arm up a bit, rock it to the side, maybe rock it to the other side. It's a really nice way to massage the body. Some people like doing it with one leg straight, and some people seem able to do it with two legs straight. I've never managed, but it can be played with. And then let's bring that to a close and be still. And you just might notice a delicious connection of sensations. I'm thinking back to Diana's exercise of when we wrote the alphabet down the side of the page, and we tried to find names for adjectives for all the different letters. What adjectives might you use to describe how you feel right now? Look for the pleasure as a priority, if there is any, or just the interesting. And whenever you feel ready to roll to your side and come back to the group, and we'll just take 2 minutes for anyone who would like to comment on what they experienced, or if you have any questions. So please feel free to unmute yourself if you have anything you would like to say or ask.
I just wanted to add to that lovely exercise. Finally, first. Can you?
Sarah, you're for me, you're slightly kind of
Delayed.
crackly.
Oh, I'm very far away in the middle
Is
of the
it just
jungle.
me? So I also have hearing issues, so it could be just me. You often naturally do the second one when your back hurts, Grace. Interesting, cool. Oh, I was trying to put on captions to try and hear you, Sarah, but it came up as Japanese. Anybody else?
I don't know if I did the last exercise correctly, because I didn't really feel, I don't know, maybe because I was trying to push my feet against the floor to try to create the movement, as well as the hips, but I'm not sure if I did it correctly.
It's hard, isn't it? I might just put my camera on the floor and try and show. Hope my camera sometimes unplugs when I move it places, so fingers crossed. It'll be nice to me. Let's do it, please do it, please do it. It's a very good question, Beatrice. It's a really hard thing when I'm teaching it on Zoom. When I teach it in class, I often stop people and I ask for permission and hold their knees and do it to them, and then they get it. So it's really quite casual in my legs. The legs, of course, are doing the work. They don't have any choice. But what I often see is this, or kind of lifting and bashing down or something. Some people find it helpful to put their feet on the wall, and that gives them a little less of a sort of effort in the legs. And it can be small, like this, or it might be quite chunky, but I find really hard. It was really hard to get at first. And it takes practice. And it's kind of one of those feelings that once you get it, you're like, oh, that's it. But you have to faff around a little bit before.
I've done it with my legs straight and heels on the ground and moving the legs.
Yes, some people
Same
do
effect.
that. I never was able to do that. I feel like really awkward, but some people love it like this, the feet kind of flapping, and that creates the movement. And that might get you the movement first, the vibe, and then that might help you. And it's individual, isn't it?
It's really nice. It's really nice. It brings this tingling and always like you're like 2 centimeters off of the mat, like there in the final. Yeah, I call it in Spanish zarandeo. When you have to, when you see the construction workers moving
Oh,
the
sifting. Yes,
shifting,
that's
yeah.
great. That's great. Also, an image I use is if you're wheeling a little child in a pram and you had to stop to chat to someone and they were awake, you do that little tiny little pulse of the pram. That's quite a good image. Anybody got any other comments on that or the other bit, the beginning of the Hannah Somatics stuff? Thanks, Sarah, for that. Oh, Muscatova method. I haven't heard of that. Yes, exactly, Sarah. Can be done passively with another person rocking the legs. And who do you find it with better with the legs down as well? Great. That's brilliant. Oh, that's great, Shona, that your neck movement has you see, it's interesting. You take the attention away from the bit that you're trying to fix, and sometimes it eases out by mistake. That's a real fascia thing as well, isn't it? As well as just leaving the nervous system, just leaving the system alone, the bit alone that's troubled, so it's not being poked at. It's a bit like when when you've got a child in class who's, maybe neurodivergent and every time the teacher is given out to them that makes them worse, regulate less well, whereas if they're left alone, they might be able to find their way. Any other thoughts about either of those? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, someone else was speaking. I have another question about you call it the Hannah methods, right? The first
Hannah Somatics. So
Hannah
Hannah
Somatics.
is the name. It is by Thomas Hannah. I don't really like a lot of his principles. He was about kind of stopping people aging through movement,
Okay.
and also very anti compensation in the body. Sort of every compensation is a bad thing and looking for fault in people's bodies. But he did create a great series of very achievable exercises that really help on a nervous system level and really help on a physiological and brain connection level. But that probably wasn't your only question, Beatrice.
No, my question was so that kind of exercises can be done everywhere in the body. For example, to find out if someone has a problem at the pelvic floor, maybe if they have pain, maybe it might be a compensation thing. Is it possible?
Oh,
As well?
completely. Pelvic floor issues can come from the back and the hips, and they can come from breathing, and they can come from trauma and so many things. What Hannah Somatics usually does, though, is looks at someone standing and walking and sees where their standing and walking is off neutral and makes a lot of judgments about that and assumptions. But I find that the practices themselves are very easily therapeutic. I don't there's some for the pelvis, but not anything directly for the pelvic floor, as far as I recall from my training.
Thank you.
Anybody? They're welcome. Anybody else before we have a little break?
I didn't hear you well when you guided the going to one side, so I wasn't sure should I go to the like the side I would like to go always or to the other side. Well, I did the both, but I was able to feel the difference of the sides, and I think that was important too, to see
Yeah.
how strong am I on my strong side. Like the right side is always there, and the left side is like almost like, where is it? Like, what muscles are working here? It was good to notice the difference.
Yeah. So sorry if I was unclear. I think I was unclear actually. I may have introduced it to people who didn't have a difference better than I introduced it to people who did. So if you did have a side you were going to, the idea was to start even going further to that side. So
Okay.
letting the body move into its compensation and feel safe that it's being told, yeah, you're okay. I understand your need to do that. And then, oh, look, this is also possible over here. And then you can even go back to the compensation side just to comfort the nervous system, but you're giving it little suggestions. Oh, look, this is possible
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're not trying to yank the body into
Mm.
what we think is best for it, because the nervous system may not always be right in its compensations, but it thinks it's right and it is really the boss. So we have to tease it with our cognitive mind,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. So permission to allow the compensation, yes, and not immediately judge or fix. It's huge in the movement world, isn't it, Cars, that idea? Like really? And Sarah, you had an emotional release, yeah. I
Yeah,
would find
I
somatics very
I
permissive in
see it
that
a
way.
lot in massage as well, where people are wanting to come in and fix something and they bring something that they view as a compensation, um, and they want to fix it. Yeah. It's nice to have that allowance to just let the body be.
Yeah. And it can be hard to get your client on board with that idea. So just giving them the exercises is a way to do it. Yeah. Thank you so much. Let's just take, if you don't mind, 3 minutes so I don't run out of time, and then I'll stop that recording here.